It's here. What's up everyone? I've got the new 35-150mm f2.8-4 lens from Tamron. So with this lens, this is an unboxing and probably some quick initial thoughts on what I think of the lens. I'll go through the specifications, through what the price is, I'll unbox it and I'll have a look through the build quality, the aperture change through the zoom range. I'll take you through that quickly as well because it is a variable lens from 2.8 to 4. So I'll take you through what that looks like through the zoom range and when the aperture changes. I'll have a look if there's any zoom creep. This is an external zoom lens, so particularly for me with my landscape photography, I just want to make sure that there's no zoom creep in this lens as well. I'll take you through what my initial thoughts are on this when I did test it installed just quickly, and then finally who I think this lens is really suited for. Alright, so let's have a quick look at the specifications here. So I've got this printed off. It's model A043. It's a 35-150mm variable aperture 2.8 like I mentioned before, 124.3mm long, or it's 4.9 inches. The weight is 790 grams. It has a 77mm filter thread, so that's good. It's a very common filter size, so if you've got 77mm filters, this will definitely work for that. It has Tamron's B-bar, which is just that anti-ghosting and anti-flare technology that they put on the front of the lens element. It also uses some new technology, simulation technology, to increase the bokeh somehow. Don't know how that works. It has two processing units actually inside this lens as well. So it has one dedicated just for the VC, just for the vibration control, and the other one for system controls, which includes the autofocus. This lens is moisture resistant, so don't know what moisture resistant means. Probably just a bit of light rain. That's all I would imagine it would be. The lens is fluorine coated as well to help keep it clean, get the dust and moisture and oil off the front element. Like I mentioned before, it has VC, which is vibration compensation of up to 5 stops. Interestingly, they did use the test for the 5 stops for this lens. They used the Nikon D810 to test the VC. So when I do a full review on that, so the camera that I will be using is the D810 as well. So I'll do a full VC check in a later full review. The minimum focus distance, the MOD is 45 centimeters or 17.7 inches. And then, yeah, Tamron says this is a perfect partner for the existing 17-35mm 2.8-4 lens as well. And if you pair that, this lens here, the 35-150 with the 17-35 and the 150-600, then you've got a sort of a new holy trinity for Tamron with that focus there. So the price in the US is $799. Here in Australia, where I'm from, it's $1,299. If you're looking for something that's a really good zoom lens and you can't afford the 24-70 and the 70-200, this could potentially do about 90% of that work of those two lenses, so that's really quite interesting. Alright, so let's unbox this baby here. It comes with the instruction manual and warranty card. Okay, let's get this out. There. Put the box over to the side. Okay, that's the hood. It's the lens hood comes with. Okay, so this has a nice matte black finish, very similar to the G series lens that they have out at the moment. So it's quite a nice finish. There is a locking mechanism here as well. That feels quite good. Locks to move the zoom. And then, as I mentioned before, it's not an internal zoom, it is an external zoom. So that's how the zoom works. All the switches do feel really good. There's an autofocus switch, a VC on and a VC off switch, so they're basically the only 3 switches. And then on the focal ranges here, on the zoom ranges here, you've got 35-150, and it's very interesting that they've put here, so from 30, 50, 85, 105, 135 and 150. So Tamron has really marketed this as a 6 portrait lenses in one. So the zoom ring feels quite good. The rubber's nice and broad here as well, and same with the focus ring. That feels quite good. Have a look at the mount. The mount is, it's not a plastic mount, it is a metal mount. Quite nice touch around here, which I really like, is actually it's got brushed metal on the outside here, so that when you actually mount this on your camera, it's nice. You can see that the brushed look at the end there. So obviously you've got the mounting here, that feels good. And then lens cap, that mounts pretty nicely. And then finally the lens hood here as well, which clicks on nice and steady. So overall, the build quality looks pretty good on this. So yeah, it looks really, really good. Okay, so what's really interesting, and I think that a lot of questions you guys will have is how does the aperture change through the zoom range? So what I have done is I have tested this prior, so I know what it is. So I've got it down here at 35mm, it's at 2.8. When you get to 42mm, it changes to 3. 50mm, it changes to 3.2. At 62mm, it then changes to 3.3, and then it changes to 3.5 at 75mm. And then you have it at 3.5 all the way through to 95mm. So at 95mm, it changes to 3.8. So that 85mm ideal portraiture range there, it will be at 3.5. And then finally at 122mm, it does change to the f.4 aperture. So from 122 all the way up to 150, it is at f.4. From a variable aperture lens, I reckon that's really, really good. And so I'll be very interested when I do a full review on this, is to take that out and see what the bokeh's like on this. So yeah, so looking forward to that. Something that I am really interested in as a landscape photographer as well, when I do my landscape photography, is zoom creeps. Taking a long exposure on this lens, I don't want the zoom ring to creep while I'm doing a long exposure. You won't be able to keep your images, especially if you've got your filters, you're using a 6 or a 10 stop filter, you're doing a 30-second, 1 minute long exposure. You don't want any movement in the lens. So I'll unlock this, and like I mentioned before, I'll show you how it's an external zoom, not an internal zoom. So what I'm really interested in is making sure that when I do this, it doesn't creep down with gravity. So it looks very nice and resistant, and that's really, really good. So I'm really happy with that. So I'm confident that if I've got the camera angled down for a long exposure, the zoom is not going to creep through the exposure time. So that's really, really good. Like I said, I did do some initial testing in store, and my thoughts on the autofocus, it's really, really good. It's very quick, from distant subjects all the way through to the foreground. It does change very quickly, so that's really good. Overall sharpness from the few shots that I took in store, it's very good as well. I haven't tested it right through the aperture range though, but with the limited time I did have it in store, the sharpness was very good. So again, when I do a full review, I'll test the sharpness range throughout the aperture range so that you guys know where this lens is absolutely the sharpest. The VC on this, the vibration compensation, is really, really good. So I have actually handheld a shot at 1/2 second and 1 second. Did that with the VC on and the VC off, and I was very impressed with the VC. The 1 second image that I handheld was actually usable. So it wasn't perfect, but for 1 second, it was absolutely amazing. So really props to Tamron for their VCs, really good. So who's this lens for? This lens I think is really for the serious enthusiast. So someone who does a lot of potentially travel photography. I think this is really nice because it's fairly compact. You don't have to take a 24-70 and also 70-200. This will get 90% of that work done. So people on a budget, like for me, for instance, I'm not a full-time photographer, and trying to invest in the holy trinity of lenses can be very expensive. So if you go for, you know, a 12-24, a 24-70, and then a 70-200, you're looking between $7,000 to $10,000. I think this, you can pretty well ideally nearly replace the 24-70 and 70-200. Yes, it's not a constant 2.8 aperture, but 2.8-4 is really good. You don't quite get the reach of a 200, but again, you know, for the price, you know, $799 in the US and $1,299 in Australia, you can't go wrong. For me, I do a lot of landscape photography, and then because all my family and friends know my photography and know the quality of my photography, I inevitably get asked to do a lot of family events like engagement parties or birthdays or taking photos of, you know, babies and things like that. So this lens will come really in handy for those types of events that I will shoot personally, and you might be in that situation as well, where, you know, your photography is really good, and so you get a lot of requests to do that for family and friends, but you don't have, you know, the money to go invest in $7,000 to $10,000 in the holy trinity, you know, and especially a 24-70 or even and the 70-200. This can pretty well do 90%, like I said, 90% of this work. So I'm very excited to test this out further. Like I said, if you want, subscribe to the channel. In a few weeks time, I'll do a full review on this. I'll take it out in the field and do a field test and do a full test. But I think overall first impressions are very good. So thanks guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see a full review of this in a few weeks time. See ya.